Toast Bites. Chomp.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Toast Bites, where we take a look at some fantastic indie games I played that didn't get a standalone video on my channel. Since I've fallen way behind on this series, I'll be cramming in a few more games than usual with the same great taste you know and love. A link to each game is in the description, along with a hidden gem, and you can check out more episodes of Toast Bites at any time by clicking the card icon. Let's get into it!
Number 1.
Luna the Shadow Dust is a hand-drawn, hand-animated point-and-click adventure where you guide a young boy and his stoic companion through a series of imaginative puzzles as they work their way up a mysterious tower. From the first frame on, this game doesn't quite feel like one, with its loving combination of charming artwork and a show-don't-tell narrative approach that trades away dialogue for thoughtful animation. It succeeds in its attempt to be more immersive with this wordless design, and its art style reads like the offspring of Adventure Time and Over the Garden Wall, meaning I love everything about it. Progression is linear in a good way, as each area offers its own self-contained puzzle you need to solve before moving on, so no endless searching for hidden items you're not even sure you need to find, and no tedious backtracking, arguably two of the weakest links in most packs. The puzzles themselves are varied in reasoning and mechanics, evolving in tandem with the environment, and each character has his own abilities you have to employ to solve them. I usually find it annoying to control more than one character in a puzzle game if I have to switch back and forth between them frequently to get minor things done, but it can be a brilliant gimmick and propel a story in interesting ways depending on the execution. Luna does it well enough. Switching does drag some puzzles out, but my hope is that as the game goes on, the relationship between the two characters would develop in a way that changes how I use them. I'm also not sure how much shadows will come into play in the full game, given its name and some of what was shown in the trailer, but a clever use of light might make the link between the story and puzzles more cohesive. Beyond that, the puzzles were engaging, never interfering with the game's momentum by being too abstract to decipher before my interest ran out, or by having too many steps. The game also has the added benefit of beautifully illustrated cinematics to break up the flow in just the right spots. So far, Luna the Shadow Dust seems to be a folksy visual treat with a lively soundtrack striking the perfect balance of fantasy and thought for gamers who'd otherwise be put off by packs. It's slated for release this summer, but you can download the demo on Steam right now, and it's well worth the 20 to 30 minutes it takes to complete it.
Number 2.
This entry is a departure from the usual bites because the focus is on a game that isn't going to be made. Vind would have been an open-world adventure game with an emphasis on exploration, a project conceived by Swedish studio Forgotten Key, which unfortunately announced its closure earlier this year. Surrounding that announcement, they released content for games they obviously won't be completing, including pre-alpha demos for Vind, and its standout mechanic was far and away the flight. Specifically, the ability to shift seamlessly between bird and humanoid form at will. I spent nearly 20 minutes diving off islands and soaring through clouds before I even cared that there were other things to do. The game is more than a pretty gimmick though, and it is pretty. Its ethereal skyscape peppered with delicately overgrown architecture made all the lovelier by the day-night cycle. There were NPCs scattered around, presenting me with simple fetch quests, while offering up tidbits that guided me to new locations, imparting a sense of progression that fed my curiosity. There were some other roleplay staples too, like building, farming, and resource gathering, though nothing too involved. I was pleasantly surprised by the cooking, which abandoned the basics of clicking on meals in a menu for the more immersive mini-game approach where you craft and discover recipes on your own while manually cooking them. I also love the dynamic implementation of the music, playing soft and shallow on foot while swelling with bass and drums in flight. Now, I'm not sure how layered the story would have been in the full game, but there was a hint of one in the demo, something about a tower I needed to gain entry to. I just wasn't compelled to push for that objective when free roaming was so much fun. I enjoyed Vind, as basic as it was, though you may wonder why I included it since Toast Bites is for games you can actually play. The truth is, I wasn't going to until I realized the developers released a short game back in 2017 that looks a lot like Vind, AER Memories of Old. At a glance, the same core elements appear to be there: the shape-shifting in flight, the floating islands, the colorful, airy design, and the exploration-driven storytelling. So while the developers said Vind wasn't intended to be a sequel to Memories of Old, my guess is it might still provide a glimpse into what Vind could have been, and having a reference you can play was enough for me to feature Vind after all, if only to say that the flight was cool, and I'm sorry the game couldn't be finished. You can download the Vind demo anyway for free on itch, or check out AER Memories of Old on Steam.
Number 3.
If my borderline disgusting delight over bringing order to chaos manifested itself into a game, it would be TRAFFIX. This oddly meditative management something or other is equal parts mesmerizing and sufficiently challenging, at least once you get farther along. You control the flow of traffic by stopping cars or letting them go, getting the required number safely to their destination in order to unlock the next level. That's all there is to it, yet it's everything. A form of perfection in design, visually and in execution. A minimalist wet dream. Now the core mechanic never changes, but the levels do, forcing your strategy to evolve. As new roads and vehicles are introduced, what began as a laid-back releasing of blocks on a screen gradually shifts into measured timing and observation without any added stress. There are 30 levels in all, each with its own stylized representation of a real-world city, and it's a pleasure to play through them. And you can get TRAFFIX for free right now on itch or for Android in the Google Play Store.
Number 4.
Clocker is one of those games that's hard to describe accurately, not to mention easy to pronounce inappropriately. On its face, it's a narrative-driven, or should I say character-driven puzzle game. In it, you play as a father and daughter separated by a mysterious event that freezes time. And oh boy, are the mechanics something special. You initially play as a father who comes to possess a watch that can forward or reverse the flow of time, and the brilliance is in how. Rather than everything going forward or back, you can manipulate time for specific people and things in each scene, with the consequences of your alterations being borne out in real time. At the most, the game offers up its own brand of thought-provoking commentary on cause and effect, missed opportunities, and the interconnectedness of life. At the least, it's just a really cool mechanic. Only the puzzles are at times so intricately woven, requiring so much testing and consideration of how every individual component in a scene affects the other, that it can devolve into a convoluted mess. I wouldn't go so far as to say I encountered any puzzles that didn't make sense, but the game doesn't hold your hand, so if you're not that great with abstract thought, you're gonna get stuck more than once. Now, I call it a character-driven game more than narrative because the story, while good, quickly took a back seat to the interactions I witnessed between people, what the changes in their behavior and dialogue revealed whenever I fiddled with time. As a daughter, you merely travel in the father's footsteps, experiencing the timeline as it plays out from however he, namely you, left it. And like I said, it's hard to describe, but weaving time together in this way is something I've personally never come across in a game before, and that alone made it worthy of this list. It's also worth it to mention that while warping time is the main thing you do, sometimes it just facilitates other aspects of the game, like collecting items or accessing new areas. And moving beyond the mechanics, there are moments when the artwork is quite lovely, and there's charm to be found in the sound design, changing palette, and character vocalizations. But as amazing as I find the game from a more cerebral standpoint, there were things that put me off. The awkward character movement when jumping or climbing, the constant loading screens, the droning, dour music. A big one was the difficulty selecting which elements in a scene to affect when there were several clustered together. Still, keep in mind I only played the demo, so I'm not sure how many of my issues were addressed in the full game, which I've read clocks in at a few hours, pun intended, or how the rest of the story evolves. I do know there are 2 endings, though, which may add to its replay value. In short, while Clocker is an achievement in its own right, it may not be for everyone, and it's up to you to decide if it's worth buying. It is, however, absolutely worth trying, so go ahead and download the free demo right now on itch.
Number 5.
So I'm kind of cheating with this entry, because it isn't so much a game as an experience I desperately wanted to share. If anything, I'd call it a true walking sim, because there's literally no mechanic besides walking, and the only objective is to explore. New Zealand is a recreation of New Zealand, using photos from the developer's travels there as a reference, and all I can say is it's amazing. Both a testament to the developer's talent and a reminder of just how real Unreal Engine can be. And there's so much detail here, from the lush foliage to the water-slicked stones on the beach. The textures are meaty, the sound design is weighty, crunchy, and organic, the lighting is remarkably dynamic, and the music is an effervescent compliment. I found myself fully immersed in the environment in a way I would have only expected from virtual reality. And don't worry, VR compatibility is forthcoming. You can adjust the camera effects or time of day in game for a different experience as well, something you'll appreciate more when you play it yourself than you will from my footage. And while there isn't an objective or ending, there are several scenic spots and hidden areas to find that'll take around 20 minutes or so to discover. I won't pretend to know offhand how the developer creates these 3D photorealistic scenes, let alone without totally tanking the frame rate. As good as it looks on my dopey PC, I can only imagine how New Zealand must run on a good one. And I strongly recommend checking this one out because the work this guy is doing on his own deserves all the attention it can get. And you can download New Zealand for free on itch, and for $2 get the wet weather update, a nice touch for anyone who'd love a walk through a rainy, overcast forest. I also suggest checking out all of his other work, including his latest explorable scenes set in Japan. Now here's a quick look at some bonus games, and remember that some of the games I mentioned are still works in progress, so what I'm showing you may not reflect the final release.
Bonus games.
That's it for this episode of Toast Bites. If you like these games, or hated them, let me know in the comments, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I'll be back soon with a peek at even more great indie games for you to share, but until then, see you on the plate!